We communicate all the time, like all the time. So the fact that I haven't heard anything from my child, that's not normal. That's not normal at all.
I don't know where she is right now. We just need her home. Like, I don't know if she's stuck somewhere. I don't know if she's trapped. I don't know if she's eating or if she's drinking.
Okay.
Fairfax County, Virginia, in early 2018, was blanketed in the gray chill of an East Coast winter. Amid the quiet atmosphere of a typical suburban neighborhood, the lives of local youth moved along at their usual pace. Jholie Moussa, 16, was a high school student overflowing with vitality. She lived with her mother and her twin sister Jholie in a warm, cozy home. Energetic, outgoing, and always seen with a bright smile, Jholie represented the quintessential American teenager, full of youthful ambitions and a nostalgic inner world. Contrasting with that bright side was Nebiu Ibrahim, 17, a male student who lived not far from Jholie's home, just a few miles down the road near Woodlawn Park. Ibrahim had a quiet, reserved appearance that masked complex psychological turmoil. The relationship between these two teenagers had been filled with the tangled dynamics and typical entanglements of adolescence. They existed in the same living space, breathing the same Fairfax County air, completely unaware that this was the starting point of a tragedy that would soon overshadow the entire peaceful suburb. However, that peaceful picture shattered completely on a freezing winter afternoon. In the late afternoon of January 12, 2018, freezing temperatures gripped the streets of Fairfax County. Nebiu Ibrahim did not attempt to make direct contact using his own phone. He went to the basketball court area near Woodlawn Park, approached a 13-year-old child playing ball there, and borrowed his phone. A brief call was made. In a casual tone, he lured Jholie Moussa out to the gray wooded area of the park to meet. Jholie stepped into the dim expanse of Woodlawn Park without a single suspicion. As soon as she set foot in the clearing among the barren trees, a conflict immediately erupted. Sudden anger turned into extreme violence. Without a moment's hesitation, Ibrahim rushed forward and restrained the victim from behind. He clamped his arm tightly around Jolie's neck, applying a precise chokehold to cut off the flow of blood and air to her brain. The disparity in physical strength quickly snuffed out every weak attempt at resistance from the 16-year-old girl. Despite the victim struggling and gasping for air, Ibrahim coldly tightened his grip, refusing to ease up by even a single millimeter until Jolie's body went completely limp and collapsed onto the cold ground. Once he determined the victim had stopped breathing, the perpetrator's ruthless calculation continued. Ibrahim left Jolie's motionless body at the scene and quickly returned to his home not far away. He quietly retrieved a sharp kitchen knife and headed back to the dark woods. In the gloomy atmosphere of the winter night, he used the kitchen knife to scrape away the frozen soil, digging a shallow hole just a few feet wide, right at the base of a tree. He dragged Jolie's body and dropped it into the hole, then gathered dry branches, decaying leaves, and surrounding dirt and rocks to cover it up, attempting to erase every trace of a human being. When the surface of the filled hole was relatively level with the park ground, he packed up his tools and quietly left the scene as if nothing had ever happened. Little did the perpetrator know, however, that these sophisticated cover-up attempts could not extinguish the suffocating manhunt that was about to begin. As the night of January 12 stretched late, the unusual silence from Jholie filled the Moussa family home with a frantic atmosphere. A few brief text messages sent from Jolie's phone with unfamiliar phrasing, claiming she was attending a party in another city, only heightened suspicions. Her twin sister Jholie insisted that Jholie would never go far away on her own without giving notice. Sensing something was terribly wrong, Jolie's mother immediately dialed 911 to report an emergency disappearance. Choking back tears on the phone, she described her daughter's sudden vanishing and begged for assistance that very night. However, in response to the family's utter panic, law enforcement initially assessed the situation as merely a case of a runaway teen. Yet that initial delay set off days of desperate searching, pushing the case into an entirely different realm. After 13 days of the family continuously pressing authorities and searching for clues on their own, the Fairfax County Police Department, FCPD, officially shifted their investigative focus and secured the Woodlawn Park area on January 25, 2018. A search force consisting of dozens of officers, canine units, and specialized teams was deployed deep into the park's gray interior. Amid the stark, harsh winter trees, a police dog suddenly detected a strange scent on a patch of ground located several dozen yards off the main path. Upon approaching the location, officers noticed a distinct abnormality on the ground. The layer of dry leaves and decaying branches here had not fallen naturally. Instead, it was piled up, covering an area of ground that showed signs of fresh disturbance. Beneath that crude layer of cover, part of a human body was visible under the cold, shallow dirt. Recognizing that this was no longer a standard missing persons case, the unit immediately strung yellow tape to lock down all of Woodlawn Park. A red alert was issued across the system. The homicide unit and the crime scene unit rushed to the location, preparing for a comprehensive forensic examination. After the body was recovered from the wooded area in Woodlawn Park, the crime scene was immediately placed under total lockdown. Detectives from the Fairfax County Police Department and the crime scene unit began working through the night. Every square meter surrounding the location where the body was found was marked, photographed, and processed for evidence in accordance with standard homicide investigation protocols. The layer of dry leaves and branches covering the top was carefully removed, and every item of value was sealed for forensic analysis. Jholie Moussa's body was subsequently transferred to the office of the Chief Medical Examiner of Virginia. Following an autopsy, forensic pathologists concluded that the cause of death was asphyxiation due to strangulation and suffocation, combined with blunt force trauma. The manner of death was determined to be homicide, meaning death resulted from the intentional act of another person rather than an accident or natural causes. In parallel with the forensic findings, experts cross-referenced the condition of the body with the time Jholie was last seen on January 12, 2018. The results aligned with the timeline of her disappearance, reinforcing the conclusion that the body had been concealed in the park shortly after her death. At this point, there was no longer any doubt. The missing person case officially turned into a murder investigation. That decisive conclusion opened an entirely new investigative avenue, as all detective efforts pivoted toward tracking down the person responsible for Jholie's death. Immediately after the medical examiner's office ruled the death a homicide, the Fairfax County Police Department's homicide unit officially took over the case file and expanded the scope of the investigation. Detectives began reconstructing the timeline of the final hours of Jholie Moussa's life, aiming to determine whom she had met and what route she had taken prior to her disappearance. Initially, police reviewed statements from family, friends, teachers, and acquaintances who had interacted with Jholie in the days leading up to the event. According to relatives, at approximately 4:30 p.m. on January 12, 2018, Jholie left home after telling her twin sister that she was stepping out briefly and would return shortly. This marked the last time her family saw her alive. Starting from this timestamp, detectives analyzed the victim's phone records and communication history. Results revealed that the final incoming call Jholie received before leaving home did not originate from a familiar contact number. Through verification steps, police identified the owner of that phone number as a 13-year-old boy who had been playing basketball near Woodlawn Park on the afternoon of the incident. When interviewed, the boy stated that he had briefly lent his phone to another teenager to make a call. This piece of information instantly became a critical lead, helping detectives narrow down the pool of individuals of interest. Alongside the telecommunications data analysis, investigative teams reviewed security camera footage across nearby roadways, residential neighborhoods, and public areas around the park to trace the victim's movements and identify anyone present at the same time. Concurrently, detectives checked Jholie's relationship history to evaluate whether she had been facing personal conflicts, receiving threats, or showing signs of being stalked prior to her disappearance. While cross-referencing witness statements with digital evidence, one name consistently surfaced across multiple independent sources. Records showed this individual had a history of conflict and violent behavior toward Jholie during the period they were dating. As phone data, witness statements, and independent investigative documentation began to align, detectives saw the path forward grow increasingly clear, However, before making any formal charging decisions, they continued to gather physical evidence and objective data to build a solid case capable of proving the complete sequence of events in court. By late August 2018, following months of gathering evidence and completing procedural requirements, the Fairfax County Police Department decided to take the next major step. On August 30, 2018, detectives officially served Nebiu Ibrahim with a charge of first-degree murder. At that time, Ibrahim was no longer out in public. He was already in custody in connection with a prior assault involving Jholie Moussa. Because of this, his arrest did not involve a high-speed chase or a tactical standoff like many other cases. Instead, detectives visited the detention facility, finalized the legal paperwork, and formally notified Ibrahim that he would remain in custody to face new charges regarding Jholie's death. According to police records, Ibrahim offered no resistance when the arrest warrant was executed. After being informed of the new charge, the suspect was processed according to legal procedures to prepare for subsequent investigative steps and interrogations. With this development, the disappearance that had generated widespread concern in Fairfax County officially entered the criminal prosecution phase, as the prime suspect became the defendant in a murder case. However, serving the charge was merely the beginning. What detectives needed next was to clarify the entire narrative of the crime through Nebiu Ibrahim's own confession. Sitting directly across from two seasoned detectives in a cramped Fairfax County police interrogation room, Nebiu Ibrahim initially opted for a strategy of silence and persistent evasiveness. He denied being at Woodlawn Park on the afternoon of January 12, maintaining that he had not seen Jholie since they broke up. However, the detectives did not rush to interrupt him. Applying a methodical, psychological approach, they presented unassailable links in the evidence chain one by one. Itemized call records from the borrowed 13-year-old's phone, extracted security camera footage, and cell tower location data. Under the weight of logical arguments and hard physical evidence, Ibrahim's calm facade began to crack. After more than 4 tense hours, the suspect's psychological resolve completely collapsed. He slumped his head onto the interrogation table and confessed, "I was angry. I got her in a chokehold from behind and squeezed tight until she stopped moving." Ibrahim did not stop there. He detailed his entire cruel sequence of actions, running home to get a kitchen knife, returning to dig a shallow hole under a tree, and using branches and dry leaves to cover his ex-girlfriend's body with his own hands. This entire chilling confession was recorded on audio and video inside the interrogation room. After months of investigation, the Fairfax County police case file was finalized through a chain of independent, mutually reinforcing evidence. Every document, statement, and forensic result was meticulously cross-checked by detectives to ensure every conclusion rested on objective grounds. One of the most critical pieces of evidence was Jholie Moussa's cell phone data. Analysis revealed that the final call made to her phone before she left home came from a 13-year-old boy's device. When interviewed by police, the boy confirmed that he had lent his phone briefly to Nebiu Ibrahim on the afternoon of January 12, 2018. This detail directly linked Ibrahim to the moment Jholie walked out her door. In addition, detectives retrieved the history of text messages sent from Jholie's phone after her disappearance. The contents of these messages did not match the actual timeline of events and were determined to be part of an effort to mislead both her family and law enforcement. Concurrently, crime scene processing results, findings from the medical examiner's office, telecommunications data, witness testimony, and records of the previous assault against Jholie were all incorporated into the case file as supporting evidence. When all documents were cross-referenced, the evidentiary chain established a consistent narrative wherein physical evidence, digital data, and witness statements contained no contradictions. Based on these grounds, the prosecutor's office determined there was sufficient probable cause and evidence to formally indict Nebiu Ibrahim on first-degree murder in Fairfax County Court. From this point, the case transitioned to the judicial phase, where all evidence would be presented in open court. In June 2019, the case was brought before the Fairfax County Circuit Court in Virginia. Prior to the commencement of a full jury trial, Nebiu Ibrahim decided to plead guilty to the charge of first-degree murder. This decision meant the defendant waived his right to a jury trial, moving the case directly to the sentencing phase. At the subsequent sentencing hearing, prosecutors emphasized that this was not an impulsive act of a single moment, but a continuous sequence of actions following Jholie Moussa's death, including concealing the body and attempting to mislead both the family and investigators. According to the prosecution, a harsh sentence was necessary to reflect the severity of the crime and secure justice for the victim. For the defense, Ibrahim's attorney requested the court to consider the defendant's age at the time of the offense. Ibrahim was 17 years old at the time and had no prior murder convictions. The defense argued that their client had accepted responsibility by pleading guilty and asked the court to weigh his youth when determining the penalty. After reviewing the complete case record, submitted documents, and arguments from both sides, the Fairfax County Circuit Court judge sentenced Nebiu Ibrahim to 99 years in prison. For Jholie Moussa's family, the sentence brought an end to a legal process spanning nearly 2 years, though it could never make up for the loss of a 16-year-old girl. The trial concluded, but the lingering impact of the case on the victim's family and the Fairfax community remained long afterward. Jholie Moussa's death left profound grief for her family, particularly her mother and her twin sister, Jholie Moussa. In numerous media appearances, Jholie's loved ones shared that the most agonizing part was not only losing a daughter and a sister, but also feeling that the initial days of searching slipped away in hope, only to end in an irreversible tragedy. For Jholie, losing her twin sister meant losing the person who had been by her side since birth. The case also drew significant public attention across Fairfax County and the broader Washington, D.C. area. Many expressed sorrow for Jholie, while raising questions about why the initial disappearance was categorized as a runaway juvenile rather than a high-risk youth case. Family members and advocates argued that initial assessment protocols need improvement so that similar situations can be handled with greater urgency. Meanwhile, the 99-year sentence handed down to Nebiu Ibrahim met with little public controversy. Most agreed that the penalty reflected the grave nature of the crime, even if no sentence could truly heal the loss suffered by Jholie Moussa's family. Jholie Moussa's case closed with a 99-year prison sentence for Nebiu Ibrahim. However, for many, the ultimate question lies not just in the length of the sentence, but in what transpired leading up to the tragedy and how the missing person report was handled in its initial days. Do you feel the court sentence accurately reflected the severity of the crime? Are there aspects of the investigation, prosecution, or youth protection systems that still leave you with questions? Feel free to share your perspective in the comments below and engage in a civil, respectful discussion that honors the victim and those affected. The tragic case of Jholie Moussa is not simply a closed criminal file, but a cold, stark warning shedding light on the hidden corners of modern youth relationships. The largest and most costly lesson drawn from this tragedy is the identification of warning signs in teen dating violence. Extreme jealousy, controlling behavior, or threats of physical violence are never expressions of love. They are red flags indicating underlying danger. Dismissing, compromising with, or quietly enduring these early seeds of violence is the shortest path to irreversible consequences. Furthermore, the case presents a major challenge for families, schools, and authorities regarding the oversight and protection of young people. Adolescents, with their psychological vulnerability and susceptibility to manipulation, require a responsive safety net. Complacency, subjective assumptions, or delayed reactions by responsible parties, even for a moment, can strip away a person's single chance at survival. Diligence and decisive action from the very first hours of an anomaly remain the thin line between life and death. On the flip side, the perpetrator's actions stand as a brutal reminder that a reckless choice in a single impulsive moment can utterly destroy one's own future and inflict permanent tragedy on others. Cruelty never resolves conflict. It only opens the door to prison and a sentence of endless remorse for both sides. Justice may be served through the strictest sentences handed down by the courts, but no verdict can resurrect a lost life or heal broken hearts. Looking back at this case, the ultimate takeaway is not curiosity about the crime, but a deep realization about valuing safety, understanding relationship boundaries, and listening promptly to those we love. If you found this content informative and valuable, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the latest videos. Your support is the greatest motivation for me to continue analyzing and bringing you more engaging, real-life crime cases. See you all in the next case.